Welcome back to another episode of Healthy Vibrations, a platform that brings together changemakers, trailblazers who are here to effectuate our youth. And our today's topic is impact of toxic co-parenting on children and adults. And this has been coming to me for a very long time, and I think I'm connecting more and more with people who deal with toxic co-parenting and how co-parenting is so important for our youth. So, keeping that in mind, we have an expert with us today, Jenni Rock, straight from UK, who's a co-parenting without conflict expert with 4 years of experience. She's been instrumental in helping divorced parents exit toxic relationships and redefine their communication patterns to prioritize the needs of their children. She has a proven track record and she brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table. So, with that, let's hear from Jenni and welcome her to our show. Welcome, Jenni, to our show. How are you doing
Thanks
today?
for having me. I'm doing wonderfully, thank you. So excited to be here with you today.
We are so excited to have you, Jenni. So, it's almost like the universe is taking me into the co-parenting, toxic co-parenting journey because I met so many people off late. So I think this topic is getting more and more attention as children are being squashed, with parents getting their divorce and two parents having completely different viewpoints and not coming together for the child. So why don't you tell us, what does toxic look like? How should
Um,
youth and parents be able to recognize that?
I think toxic co-parenting is very controlling. Is very unwilling to negotiate. Is very self-centered, very self-absorbed. Not willing to take any other consideration into account. And we quite often find in toxic co-parenting that you have an aggressor and you have a victim. Very similar to domestic abuse. And to be fair, the behaviours displayed are normally very abusive type behaviours. So you've got one person dominating the other person, and the other person is just absolutely squashed. They have no voice, they have no say, they have no ability to stand up for themselves because it's all been taken away. And it's really become really prolific over the last few years. It's becoming more and more common that people are entering this situation of needing to sort of separate a contract of being together as man and wife. And instead of being able to actually talk to each other, they are basically leaving the marriage with the worst level of communication that they've probably ever had, and then not changing from that. So they exit the marriage expecting it to be better, and it's not. It just continues in that same behavior and that same communication style, that is incredibly damaging for everybody concerned.
Yes, it's so sad, right? It's so sad to see, especially after the pandemic. I think people are looking more and more after themselves and they don't
Mm.
want to stay in any toxic relationships, and they're stepping out of marriages and they're ending relationships. But it's so sad to say that our youth are struggling and suffering because our adults are taking decisions on divorce, which is okay. I don't think there's anything wrong in somebody realizing that they don't want to live with somebody. I think it's healthy for the child. But the the separation doesn't have to be so bitter. Now, it's easier said than done, and you and I know it, right? It's easier said than done that when they have gone through such a toxic relationship, it's just hard to keep your cool and to think about the children while going through that toxic separation. So, here is my humble request to all the parents who are either going through a divorce or are thinking of a divorce: get a professional to help you, to support you through this process, because otherwise your child is going to come out with a whole lot of other issues which you don't want to deal with or want them to deal with. So what let's highlight some of the um, let's highlight what are the things to look out for. What impact does this toxic behavior from parents have on children when they're typically going through a divorce?
So children, depending on their age, it has different impacts. Right? Um, Generally speaking, you have a child that may well be regressing, bedwetting, um, sort of regressing emotionally, being more clingy, wanting to sort of just be pandered to a little bit more like babyish behaviour. You may well see self-harm evident. Now that may be cutting, but it could also be drinking, it could be smoking, it could be drugs, it could be hanging out with the wrong kind of people for them, it could be truanting from school, they could be causing criminal damage, criminal behaviours, and all of those things are a cry for attention. They are the signs that that child is really struggling in life and they cannot cope. But I'm also seeing suicide attempts by children. Um, the, the amount of children that are impacted, if 1 in 2 marriages end in divorce, then half of the married population will have the responsibility of caring for their children through a very difficult and traumatic time. And the majority of those parents will find a good lawyer. That's their only focus, find a good lawyer. But the lawyer doesn't care about the emotions. The lawyer just cares about the law. That's it. So you've got people making decisions based on emotion, based on, I hate them because they had an affair. I hate them because they ruined my marriage. I hate them because they treated me badly. I hate them because, and it's this litany of hate aimed towards the other parent, and they don't see that the children are sat there thinking, but I'm half mum and half dad, or I'm half, I'm half of each. So if they're bad, does that mean I'm half bad? And they stop communicating with their parents. They don't want to hurt the other parent who's being bad mouthed. They quite often are restricted from seeing the other parent because it's a vendetta. It's you've hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to take your children away from you. You're not going to see them. And all of those things are so damaging because they're role modeling to those children how adults separate from relationships, how adults dissolve relationships, and how to deal with conflict. Because it's not just marital conflict, it's any conflict. So they're seeing, well, when something doesn't happen and doesn't go my way, then I should throw a complete and utter hissy fit, throw all my toys out of the pram, scream and shout, and then I get what I want. Or they see
The
it
red
as
flags.
beaten down.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, they just there's also the other side where they just feel like they have no voice, they have no say. They love both parents, but they're not being allowed to see one.
It's so amazing that you point these things out, and I coach teens as you know, and in especially when a parent is going through a divorce during teenage years, I think it's double or triple or quadruple difficult for a child to go through it because all of the red flags that you're mentioning, like cutting, drugs, criminal behavior, suicide attempts, these are all the things that they're already dealing with through teenage years. And while I don't want to, by any means, um, suggest that the parents are not going through a lot, of course, divorce is hard for anybody. It's very important to get professional help during the divorce for your child, specifically because you, as a parent, are not capable of taking some sound decisions for the child because you're so emotionally driven at that point. So, to get a coach who can support you with co-parenting or who can support your child during this time to prevent them from self-harm or from becoming a people pleaser or from not feeling safe for that matter. Their entire life is being rocked, their foundation is being shaken. So, to all the parents out there, get that support. There is no harm in asking for help. You're, in any case, dealing with a lot of stuff on your own, going through a divorce. you can at least have that peace of mind that your child is taken care of.
Absolutely. And knowing that somebody is there for your child means that it frees up headspace for you to be able to focus on the work that you need to do to get through divorce. Because we're not taught how to get through it. There are no classes, we don't get taught in school. And we may or may not have seen our parents get divorced. And we base our entire experience based on what we have seen or heard in the past. And that may be healthy or may be very, very unhealthy. So getting support for whoever is going through divorce, I would say you need a team. You need a legal advisor, you need a financial advisor, you need a divorce coach, you need a kids coach. You need a team of people supporting you to get through it in the best way possible so that you can make decisions without allowing them to be impacted by the emotion that's dwelling at the time.
Yes. And this is what is going to decide that future.
Yeah,
Just like you
absolutely.
are so focused on deciding your future, those children are concerned about them, and uh, their safety net is shaken. So they need the support and they need the help.
Yeah.
So I'm sure something of what would your suggestion be? What can parents do to lower the impact as they go through this through the divorce and the co-parenting journey? How can they lower the impact, the damage that is
I
being
think
caused to a child?
I think a lot of parents underestimate what the child hears and sees. And I think it's really important that they communicate with their children. They can't stop them from being aware that the divorce is happening, but what they can do is provide that child with a safe space to actually ask questions, talk about their fears and their concerns, talk about what the plans are, talk about what's next. You even give the child a bit of an input into their part of this. What's their new bedroom going to look like? How often are they going to see them? If they don't see them for a whole week, are they going to be able to have maybe a Zoom chat or a FaceTime or something with them during the week? Can Daddy read them a story at night? Some nights, on the iPad. There's lots of ways, especially with today's technology, that we can make things happen to make the transition easier. But one of the biggest things is that as a parent, you loved that person once. They were important enough for you to make children with. Therefore, they are important enough for you to actually be able to put your differences aside to deal with the children's arrangements and to ensure that that child is not damaged beyond repair by the divorce, because the older the child gets, the more potential damage that can happen, because the more legal liability they have for their actions, and the more dangerous the opportunities are that they can access. A 5-year-old doesn't have access to sharp knives the same as a 15-year-old does. It's it's about allowing that child to be themselves without um, without fear of retribution, because quite often they will try to protect the parent and say what they think that parent wants to hear, because they don't want that parent to be sad and crying and upset. Oh, I hate Daddy too. He's a mean person. They don't mean that. They're just saying that because they don't want you to cry anymore. So
So
it's
these
delicate.
these these bring two questions to my mind. One is, can you break down for our audience what is the age group that we need to look out for in terms of communication? For instance, what you can tell a teenager, you can't tell a 6-year-old
Mm,
or an 8-year-old or a 3-year-old. So can
yeah.
you break down for us on divided by age group on how we can communicate with the child and what a parent should communicate with a child?
I think every child is very different. Therefore, you could have 5, 6-year-olds in a row, and each one of them you would have to communicate with differently to be able to pass that message in an understood way to that child. I would probably go by school groupings, so kindergarten. Um, you know, uh, I'm not sure how the American school system works, but I know you've got the in between kindergarten to junior high to
Elementary,
high.
yes. We
Yes, that
have
was the one.
elementary, we have middle and high, and
Yeah.
then
And
college.
I would probably break it down. I mean, a kid that's in college is not going to have the same reaction as a kid that's in kindergarten. So the first thing, the younger the child is, the more they need to know that they're safe, the more they need to have that security of knowing that it's okay. We're still your parents. We still both love you. And we're just, it's better for us to not argue and be in the same house. It's better for us both to be
So,
happy so we can be happy with you.
correct. And I think that opens up my next question, which was we hear a lot of parents turn around and say, um, um, we're in the marriage for the kids.
Mm,
And they continue to live in the marriage, in an unhappy marriage, for the longest time possible because they're scared of doing it. When I was going through a divorce, I went to my therapist, and I said the same thing to my therapist. My therapist turned around and told me that this is your fear. You're hiding behind the child. And I think
mm,
99% of people hide behind their children and say, we're doing it for the kids. And is it
yeah,
really, in my opinion, I think it's really worse for the kids, for the child, for you to stay in the marriage, because then the child has a complete um, wrong perception of a married life, of a
absolutely.
relationship. So, what are your viewpoints on how a couple who's decided that they don't want to be together,
Hmm.
should they stay together because of the kids?
No, no, categorically. The child is going to look at their marriage, and when they get married later on, they are going to see that the way their parents' marriage was is how marriage should be. So what they're doing is they're actually role modeling for their child what a healthy marriage should look like. Apart from it's not a healthy marriage. So they're giving their child a completely false view of what marriage is. And if they want their child to be able to have a successful, happy, loving marriage, then the best thing that they can role model for them is to be individually successful, happy individuals that are free to do what they wish to do. Whether that's meet somebody else so that they can role model a good, healthy, marriage, or whether they decide not to. That's fine. But I think I tend to work on brutal honesty and extreme ownership. So brutal honesty, everything I decide to do is what impacts the results that I get. And I encourage my clients to look at things in the same way. So, okay, you haven't got the result. I had a phone call earlier on today, and it was a lady saying, "Oh, he's asked for this and he's asked for that." And I said, "And you're now spinning around in circles because you need to control what's coming next." And she went, I said, "Well, that's exactly what you're doing. You're spinning around in circles trying to predict what he's going to do so that you can plan your reaction to that." I said, "You can't plan it because you don't know what he's going to do because you're not in his head. So you either ask him and choose whether or not you believe what he tells you, or he may not even answer you, or you accept the fact that you can't control this and you're just going to have to deal with whatever comes and, see what happens."
It's the worst horrible nightmare. I still remember that, yes. You're constantly running around in circles, wondering what the other person is thinking and where are you going to be hit, and there's no trust and there's no love. And oh my God, it's such a nightmare.
Yeah,
And at a time like this, it's so hard to think about children.
absolutely. Because there's assets that need to be looked at, whether it be pensions or houses or cars or
Yeah.
furniture or anything. So that's on top of the children. And then you've got to decide, is the other person going to be living close enough to be, sort of doing school runs and childcare and how we're going to split the days. And there's so much, it's overwhelming, which is why I always advocate having a team, because you wouldn't go into surgery and just have a surgeon. Basically, divorce is a surgery. It's a division of two people to become separate. Therefore, I see it as like a surgery. So if you're going into surgery, you want the anaesthetist, you want the nurse, you want the scrub nurse, you want the other people. There's a team of people around you, all with different functions to keep
All
you going.
experts. Yes,
All
and they're all
experts in their
experts in
field.
the field. Yeah. No, I so agree with you, and I love the way you've broken it down, saying you won't go into a surgery without a team of experts. So you don't expect one person to give you everything. A lawyer is going to give you a practical viewpoint. There's going to be no emotion, and what you need, what your child needs at this point in time, is true emotion and empathy.
Yeah.
So yes, that is so well said. I think we are becoming, especially after the pandemic, people are becoming more and more aware of what they want in life and who they want to spend the rest of their lives with.
Yeah.
But protect your children. Reach out for that expertise so that you can, divorce is tough as it is, so that you can have a little bit of peace of mind to know that your child will actually turn out to be okay and will not carry. At least you will cut down the baggage by 50%. So you would have cut your losses a little bit.
Absolutely. And it's one less stress to deal with, knowing that they've got that space to talk to somebody that they can trust, that they can build that relationship with, that can navigate these waters with them, which don't just impact them for the divorce, they impact them for their entire lives. So they would give them the tools and the toolbox to help them not just overcome the divorce, but to be able to overcome any situation that they come up against. So it's a massive gift that they would be giving their children by getting them that support.
Yes, I agree with you. Now, do you deal a lot with people who, I would imagine, who are actually going through the divorce or are beginning to think of a divorce or are after the divorce? What is which field, which space do you fall in?
Yeah, it
Or all
tends
of
to
the above?
be it tends to be either going through or have gone through the divorce. It tends to be that the people that I work with are the ones that fall through the cracks, the ones where it's gone to hell in a handbasket. They are absolutely desperate. Quite often, the children are being used as a weapon against them. Quite often, they're being accused of things that haven't happened because it's easier to do that than to actually deal with things like a grown up. So accusations are made which then complicate all of the child visitations and all of those things. So it's used as a weapon. I tend to help what I class as the down and dirty cases, where people are absolutely destroyed, I think is probably the best way to describe them. I have a wonderful set of colleagues that help people that are going through relatively amicable divorces, and that's great. But we all know somebody who is going through the divorce from hell, and those are the ones that come to me, is when it's the divorce from hell, and they just don't know what to do with themselves anymore.
So you help them set boundaries. Now that could be a really difficult job.
Yeah.
So how do you suggest, and what boundaries do you suggest a parent should set while going through a divorce or after going through a divorce to have effective co-parenting?
Yeah, I think pick your battles is always a good one. Don't worry about the small stuff. If the child hasn't brushed his teeth for one day out of 7, it's not going to kill him. It's if they come home wearing the same outfit that they wore yesterday, nobody's going to die about it. It's not negligence. That's just what happened. So pick your battles is the first one. And every time you come up against a scenario where you're kind of ready to fly off the handle because you need to communicate because they haven't done this or they've done that, is think about, will this matter in 5 years' time? Will this actually matter in 5 years' time? So if the child is failing school, yes, that's going to matter in 5 years' time because that's going to impact them. So how do we get the child back on track? If the child has lost a pair of shoes, that's not going to impact them in 5 years' time. I've had the conversations with people that say, oh, they're not giving the school uniform back. I'm like, how many sets have you got? How many sets of uniform have you got? And they're like, oh, 2 jumpers and because over here they all wear uniforms. 2 jumpers and 2 shirts and 1 pair of trousers. I'm like, you haven't got enough. You need to have literally 2 sets for him, for his dad, and then you need to have at least 5 sets of everything for your house. I said, you need to be swimming in the stuff. You need to have so much more than you think you need right now, because especially if it's little boys, because they tend to, I don't know, I think they all just like roll in ditches before they come home. But
Yes, they do. But they're also easier to handle than girls, I will say.
they,
So
yeah,
they're a
they,
lot easier. You put on a t-shirt, you put on a pair of shorts, and you throw them out the door. So that's good. You don't have to tie ponytails and figure out, oh my
yeah,
God, am I looking pretty?
yeah.
Yes, so good.
But
Boys are a
it's
lot
kind of like,
simpler.
stop stressing over school uniform when that's a problem that is so easily solved. When the bigger issue is that they're falling behind in their reading because they're not getting the attention that they need because we're spending too much time fighting. So how do we fix that? But it's
Because,
also
and I think
trying
this
to.
happened. Uh-huh. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's also remembering that that human being is a person that you once loved, and you need to remember to treat people as you wish to be treated. So you treat them with kindness, regardless of how they're behaving. You continue to treat them with kindness because you are role modeling
And I
behavior
think
for your
that's
children.
where I think that's where the break is, because you've gone through so much and it's just so hard to be kind at that point,
Yeah.
or to think about the other person, or to feel grateful, or to just,
Mm.
your life is falling apart, your family is falling apart. And that's when you need somebody like you to
Mm.
remind the person that, look, everything's going to be okay. There are larger issues. Pick your battles. This is not going to matter in 5 year time. You know what?
Mm.
You have enough stress on your hands. Just breathe through it and don't fight on every small thing. But yeah, at that point in time, you just can't think straight. So a professional like you would be great at that point, who comes in and gentle reminders
Yeah.
at every step saying, you have 5 uniforms in the closet. If one
Yeah.
doesn't come back, it's okay. Because it's not really about the uniform, right? It's not about
It's
the
not.
uniform. So yes, so this is, oh my God, this is such an interesting conversation. So pick your battles when you're setting boundaries, very, very important. While communicating, think about it, whether it's going to matter in 5 years. If it's a lost pair of shoes, if they've gotten late to a class, which, is it going to matter? If they failed in class, sure, it's going to matter. If they're not reading or they're not studying, it's going to matter. But really, if they missed one game, is it really
Mm.
going to matter? So pick your battles to reduce the stress on you. Get yourself a professional who can guide you through the journey, so that we can prevent our youth from harming themselves, from growing up with baggage, from um, misunderstanding relationships. So thank you, Jenni. This was such a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad we could have you on board. And Jenni, again, is based in the UK. Please get in touch with her. She works globally, so you can get in touch with her from anywhere. If you're going through a divorce, or if your divorce is really down and dirty, or if you're thinking about a divorce and you have a child, and she services old people with children of any age. So even if they're not teens.
Mm.
So I wish you luck. Every parent listening to this, I wish you lots of love, lots of support, and from Jenni and I both. And give yourself that space, give yourself that love, and get yourself a professional who can help you and your child. With that, let's thank Jenni. Thank you, Jenni, for being here with us. I appreciate you.
You're
Um,
welcome. Thank you for having me.
of course, of course. You have a beautiful day, and hopefully, I will see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.